Welcome to the Dad Show. Dad Sports Life. Let's go.
Today on the Dadger, we're excited to welcome former Wisconsin Badger basketball player Zach Morley. From carving out his role in the Big Ten to life after basketball as a father of four now and a financial advisor. Zach's story is all about growth, perspective, and staying connected to the game in new ways. Zach, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. Glad I could make it. Excited.
Yeah, so you were born and raised in Maryville, Missouri. Can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing?
Yeah, so Maryville's a smaller town community just north of Kansas City. Grew up, my dad was a college coach at a Division II school there, Northwest Missouri State. Is what brought us to Maryville. I actually was born in Springfield, Missouri.
Okay.
He was coaching at Drury College in Springfield, and then we went to Kansas for a few years at Benedictine College, and then eventually ended up in Maryville at Northwest Missouri State where he was coaching. So obviously it was a big part of my life being in Maryville, but with a dad as a college coach and two older brothers, I would say I was around the game from birth. So it's something that
the two brothers, what's the age difference between all you guys?
So there's actually I have three brothers, one younger, but the two older.
Okay.
The oldest one is 6 years older, and then like 2.5 years older is the next one, and then my younger brother's 2 years younger.
So did you have an interesting kind of perspective, kind of growing up, looking up to your older brothers, but then also trying to set a good example, sports wise for your younger brother?
Yeah, and I guess at the time you don't really. Obviously you look up to your older brothers. You want to follow in their footsteps. They all all three of my brothers all played college basketball. So growing up watching them and playing high school, and hoping someday to do that, and then see them play in college, and then I don't think I necessarily thought about being a good example for my younger brother, other than just being a good brother and kind of doing what older brothers are supposed to do.
How did competition between all you guys look like? And I assume it seeped into home life as well, correct?
Yeah, for sure. And it was, I would say my oldest brother was quite a bit older. So there wasn't, for me, there wasn't a ton of, I guess, competition between us as far as, basketball or different things when we were younger. As we got older, that changed. But growing up, it was really just my brother that's a couple years older than me. He and I are the two that I would say battled the most. Our younger brother was always, he's younger, he was smaller. It's like he kind of stayed out of the way, but the two of us in the middle were the ones that always went, had battles.
Yeah. So the competition between you guys and, maybe taking some of those losses, do you think that gave you an edge when you actually started playing, organized sports? Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And it was, even when I, throughout my childhood into high school, college, it was always the one thing I was going to do is I was going to compete, and that's, I had to growing up. And I was fortunate enough, even in high school, with the university being there and the ability to go in the summers and playing with their guys, as 15, 16-year-old going and playing pickup games with college guys, that, you either compete or you kind of get pushed off the side and you have to watch. So it was, from a young age, it was, if you want to play, you got to compete.
Did I assume you got to play on a couple of teams with your brothers growing up. What was that like?
Yeah, so the other brother, my other one, just older than me, he and I were high school. We were overlapped for 2 years, and so my sophomore year we were both on varsity. I didn't really get to play much. It was if there was a blowout or something. So I don't think we ever were on the court at the same time together.
Okay,
but we practiced every day together. We did that, which only helped me.
Now, I know you said your dad coached at the college level. Did he ever coach any of you guys in anything growing up, or he really didn't have much time for it being a D2 coach?
No, he did. Obviously the time was limited, but he made an effort and he coached. He was our coached all of us in baseball. He coached us, not necessarily always there for when we played basketball. It's coaching, but when he could be there, he'd help out coaching. Or there was times as we got older that he would coach us, and he actually got out of coaching when my oldest brother was junior or senior in high school, just because he realized like he never got to see him play a game, and it was something that he didn't want. With the knowing he had three younger boys coming up, like didn't
Yeah.
want to go back and think about that. I've never got to see him play in a high school game.
Yeah. We'll talk about, kind of fatherhood a little bit later, but so your dad was a coach. I read an article where two of your brothers are coaches as well.
My two older brothers were in coaching. They both, it's now they have kids of their own, and they've
Yeah.
kind of gotten out. They both were, in the college coaches, junior college coaches, head coaches, and then the one brother was moved down to South Carolina, was assistant coach at a Division II school in South Carolina, Francis Marion, and then got married and he's got two daughters, so he's gotten out of it as well.
Well, I was going to say, it seems like coaching kind of runs in your blood. Have you thought, I mean, your kids are getting to that age where you're probably thinking about coaching them, or not so much? That doesn't
No, I
interest
do.
you really.
Coach
Okay.
the
Okay.
two oldest. I coach both of their teams. So it's for my oldest son's a sixth grader and daughter's a fourth grader. So I have coached both of their teams the last 2 years. So it's fun. It's just can be a lot. It's a lot
Yeah.
of long nights in the gym.
With are you gonna try to do the thing where you follow, one of them through up through high school, or?
No, I don't. I have no intentions of
Okay.
getting into the high school world, but no, I'd try to keep coaching them up until through eighth grade. And it'll be interesting next year because then our daughter will be a third grader next year, so she can start doing the kind of the BDL league through the Middleton club. So I'm not sure how I'm going to do that yet with three. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to pull off coaching all three of them, but we'll see what happens.
You want to stick to like the fundamental area. It sounds like the third through sixth, third through seventh.
Yeah, and get them up through eighth grade. It is, and it's the development side. It's
Yeah.
I'm sure that, and I've had conversations with my son. He doesn't always love the idea that at the end of the day, I don't really care if we win or lose. Like, yeah, we want to win, but are we developing them so that when they get to high school, they know how to play basketball versus, kind of cut corners and try to have a better record in fifth grade when it really doesn't mean anything.
Yes. I love that because a lot of, these schools, the coaching doesn't align all the way through high school. It seems like, you know what I mean? Like it's like you say, like those fifth grade coaches just want to win. They don't want to be able to actually see these kids progress and make it, so when they're in high school, they have that basketball IQ and they don't have to, drill these fundamentals to these kids.
Yeah. And I agree. And a lot of that has to be kind of from the top down. I think if they want that, the communities want that, the high school coaches have to be the ones that kind of put that in place. And I would say it's one thing that, being in Middleton that I have a hard time with is that there's not that continuity. There's not I'm on the board now with the Middleton Youth Basketball Club, but there's not a lot of interaction with the high school programs, especially on the boys' side, which only is a detriment to the high school teams because, if now they have to, like you said, you've got to teach them how you want to do it when they get there instead of, all along the way.
Yep. If we can go back, so what was your introduction to organized sports?
I would guess like most kids, I'm sure I was playing soccer at 4 or 5 years old and running around in a big clump of kids chasing a ball and, and T-ball. And, the one thing that was nice was, it's kind of, I feel like it's changing nowadays, but it was, you played whatever was in season. So played soccer, you played baseball, you played football, you played basketball. It was, you was fortunate enough to be able to do it all. And it was never a specialized thing. It was never even an option. It was whatever's in season is what you're playing.
Yeah. would you say basketball is your first love of a sport?
Um, yeah, probably. I mean, I grew up around it, so it
Yeah,
was,
I was gonna say just for the sole fact that you were around it, 24/7. It sounds like.
yeah, and I was, and it's, but it was one of those that I guess I loved whatever was in season. It
Yeah.
was whatever it was, that's what I was going to do. That's what I was all in on. And um, obviously, as I got older, it switched more towards basketball, but I still played. Throughout high school, played baseball, played football,
Okay.
and then kind of switched over. Obviously, I think my senior year, I just did basketball.
Okay. I was gonna say you did those all 4 years.
Yeah, up until my senior year, which looking back, I regret not playing football my senior year. Just more so I did it not to get hurt, and then I ended up breaking my leg 10 games into the basketball season. So it's like, well, I kind of wasted that.
When did you? Because you're 6'8", correct?
Yeah,
When did you hit your growth spurt?
I was late, and we talk about my son right now. He keeps wondering when he's going to start growing, and it's like I don't. I think I went into high school I was maybe 5'8", 5'9". Got up to close to 6 feet my sophomore year, and then really, probably 6'3", 6'4" my junior year, and I even grew. And then I think I finished high school at 6'5" or 6'6", and then grew another couple inches my first year in college.
Yeah, I was gonna say I read an article where it said you grew like 3 inches your first year of college.
Yeah, I was maybe. I think I tried to say I was 6'6" getting out of high school, but it was probably 6'5", and then grew at least a couple inches in that first year.
So through high school, having grown, being only 5'8" to start, and then growing that much throughout high school, did you play kind of barrage of different positions?
Yeah, it was. I started. It was always. I mean, I guess in our high school we were lucky. It was our coach was a Bobby Knight disciple and loved everything. So it was motion offense. So it wasn't like you were set in one spot. It was, you kind of, everyone had to know how to dribble, everyone know how to pass, everyone, had know the fundamentals. And, but I would say I was more guard oriented and, going into high school. And then as I grew it, not that I just sat on the block, but there was one big guy. So I was guarding the bigger guys. I was, but it was still a lot of perimeter stuff and kind of doing it all.
I was gonna say, did playing the guard, kind of the more guard heavy positions early on, really help you develop your shot form, and then as you grew, you kind of got that, in the post footwork, more comfortable, kind of banging bodies down there.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it was more. I was fortunate enough to grew up with the game of basketball, so it was
Yeah.
as long as I can remember going up and we had a free night, we'd go up to the gym and shoot, and it was working. My not that I don't remember, but I'm sure my dad was working on our form and working on our and it was, and I think a lot of it as you get bigger and the footwork kind of comes into play, and it really comes back to competing. It's finding your advantage, whether it's on the perimeter or it's inside, and trying to take advantage of it.
If we can talk about your recruiting journey a little bit, when did you start getting recruited, and I guess were you going to like camps to get your name out there, or how did you go about kind of getting seen?
So I did. So like being in a smaller school in Missouri, and I would say our coach didn't put a lot of effort in. Wasn't going to get out there and get your name out there. So I did a few camps. It was probably my junior senior year was when it really I started talking to teams, and then I think it was 10 or 11 games into the year I broke my leg on a went up for a dunk and came down, landed wrong, and broke my leg, tore my MCL, kind of messed up everything. And so I ended up, I was already leaning potentially at the coach at Indian Hills Community College, where I ended up going to junior college, was there. I think he came to watch my first game of my senior year. And that was only because my brother was coaching at a junior college in Iowa at the same time, and
Okay.
said something to him like, "Hey, you should go, like, go check out my brother. Like, would love to have him on our come play for me, but I think he's better than that."
Yeah.
And so that was where that kind of opened that door for me. And then knowing, growing up and knowing, I wasn't getting, I had some Division II schools talking to me. I had some junior colleges I had, and, it's actually the school in my hometown who knew the coach my whole life essentially told me he wanted me to walk on and redshirt, which I wasn't going to do. So I went, so it ended up being a great move going to Indian Hills, and, the talent that they had, have and still have go through there is very high end.
What was the recovery time on that injury?
So I was out for, I think I did it in January, and I think it was probably April or May before I could start, getting on the court. And I don't, I'm not necessarily playing 5-on-5, but start doing stuff. And then, so it was, 4 or 5 months probably that I was, before I was completely back.
Yeah, I guess having that long off your senior year, not being able to play the full season, kind of the recruiting aspect of it coming in there, I guess how difficult was that for you? And was there someone you leaned on to kind of help you get, kind of wade through those waters?
Yeah, I don't, I mean, I remember it. I mean, it sucked watching going to the games and watching the team play, and knowing
Yeah,
we had a good team that, still, Missouri does it a little bit different, but it would have been, still lost in the team lost in the sectional finals would be the equivalent
yeah,
to Wisconsin. And it was knowing that, like, oh, if I would have been out there, we would have had a good chance to, to make it state and to do that. So that was tough. But as far as the recruiting stuff goes, it was, I guess it wasn't like teams were beating down the door
sure.
even before I got hurt. So it was, would I have probably had, I would have had more interest for sure. But, looking back, I think I was fortunate that kind of everything played out the way it did.
Did the injury hinder your confidence at all to get back to the level of play you had prior to that, or was it like you were too young to even think about
Yeah.
that
Oh, I was
maybe
just,
that
it was,
sure.
didn't even, I was 17 and dumb. It was just like,
Yeah,
as soon as I can get back out there and start playing, I'm going to do it. And I didn't even cross my mind that, that
yeah.
something else could happen.
So you said you end up at Indian Hills. Was the plan always there to play there 2 years, build up kind of a resume, so to speak, and then get to a D1 program? Or
No,
was the
I
initial
mean,
plan just I'm just going to go play some hoops and see where it takes me?
yeah, I would say it was get there. And, obviously I was a qualifier out of high school, so a lot of guys go to junior college because they have to, academically
Yeah,
or whatever. So they have to stay for 2 years to graduate. And then before they can move on, I was, I was a qualifier. So I had the option to leave after the first year, but going into it, I had, I just kind of went into it naive and had no idea what to expect, if I would play when I came in and I had, you go to a team and you've got, there's a couple of McDonald's All-Americans on the team. You've got, they made a run to the national championship the year before and didn't really lose many guys.
yeah,
So it was one of those that I had no idea. I didn't know what I didn't know. So I just kind of goes back to the beginning. I went in there and played hard, played the right way, knew how to play, competed, and, ended up starting as my first year there.
yeah. I was going to ask, what was the transition like from high school to playing JUCO ball there?
It was eye opening, especially coming from a small town in Missouri to go into Indian Hills. And it's, I remember the first, week there playing pickup games, and it was the talent that was on the size, the talent, the guys that were there. I mean, they're all great guys, but a lot of them were there for a reason. And, it it was interesting. It was eye opening, but it was a great experience, and enjoyed my time there.
Did you have any transitions that you remember being the toughest, either on or off the court that first year?
Um, I mean, I would probably just on the court of just adjusting to the speed, the strength, the size, the kind of the more the grind of wasn't, it's you think of college basketball as, especially when I got to Wisconsin, it was the the grind that was at Indian Hills where it's year round and it's, the pickup games and the up and down and pressing and it was came from slow it down, run motion, offense in high school and, play defense to all of a sudden it's we're going to press, we're going to get up and down. It's, and it's the level of athletes and the level of competition was probably the biggest jump.
After 2 years, you transfer out. Can you talk about kind of what that process looked like? And I guess were multiple schools in touch with you about transferring? I guess how did that come about?
Yeah. So I actually, going back to what you mentioned, like going for 1 year, I was really close to leaving after the first year to go to Creighton.
Okay.
And there was a bunch of schools that, I was talking to a lot of the Missouri Valley schools and different schools that first year. But that was when Creighton was, making their runs and doing, Kyle Korver and different guys were there and
Yeah.
were repeatedly making the tournament and doing different things. And I don't, it was one of those that looking back, it's like, I don't know why I didn't go there, leave. It was kind of everything you're looking for. It's,
Right.
in Omaha, which would have been closer, close to home. It was good teams. The style of play fit me. Went on a visit there. It was good guys, and ultimately decided to go back for another year at Indian Hills, which it was when I told because it was Dana Altman was the coach at Creighton at the time. He was at Oregon now, and I remember telling him that I was leaning to coming back, going back to Indian Hills for another year, and he called me. He's like, "Well, what can we want to talk? We want to meet with you." So he and the whole staff came to Ottumwa, Iowa. We met him at like 11 o'clock at night at the hotel, and they, tried to, kind of put the full court press on of how I was making a mistake, and if I didn't go there, next year they wouldn't have a spot for me. It's a terrible, terrible mistake. I'm gonna regret it, and it's. And I'll never forget when I just said, like, I've made up my mind, I'm coming back. Like, and they said, all right, well, we won't have a spot for you. And then my sophomore year, the first time coaches come in to watch pickup games, two of the coaches were sitting at half court from Creighton watching. And it was, and they, so I left. I was like, well, they're not here for me because they told me they don't have a spot for me. And left and went to the cafeteria, and our assistant coach called, and he's like, where are you at? They're waiting for you. And it's like, oh, who's waiting for me? He's like, oh, you saw them. The Creighton guys are here. I was like, oh, they didn't have a spot for me. Tell them to talk to somebody else. It was one of those that, it's looking back, probably wasn't the best idea, but it was, I mean, if you're going to tell me, put the full court press on me and tell me you're not going to recruit me next year if I don't come this year, then don't recruit me next year. I'll
hey,
go
Wisconsin
else.
Appreciates it. Wisconsin appreciates
it. Yeah. No, I mean, it worked out. It worked out. And then
I guess how and why did you end up choosing Wisconsin then?
So I was talking to, I talked a lot of the Big 10 schools, Big 12 schools. I went on a visit to New Mexico early my sophomore year, the second year. Went to Minnesota. Was supposed to go to Utah when Majerus, was there, but ended up committing to Wisconsin before. Was talking with Bobby Knight at Texas Tech. I was, there was a lot of schools, and it really came down to Minnesota or Wisconsin were the kind of the last two that I was talking to. And it's funny. I people ask me like, why did I choose? And I don't know. Like I I was some of it was just timing. I was kind of over. I was sick of the recruiting process.
Yeah.
I was sick of just the constant, calls and questions, and I just was kind of over it all, and went to Minnesota. It's like and then you go looking back, you compare the visits. I went to Minnesota, and the hockey team had just won a national championship, and it was just chaos. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And then I came a couple weeks later to Wisconsin on a visit, and it was Easter weekend, and there was nobody here. I went, and Bo actually wasn't even here. And it's funny because I'd never once talked to Bo until the last night of my visit.
Really?
In the recruiting, I didn't know him. I didn't know. The only coach I had talked to was Coach Jeter the
Okay.
whole time. So I didn't even know who the other coaches were on the staff. So I came and but I hit it off. I came, the guys were still. We played pickup. We went out. We did different things, and really hit it off. And they just come off winning the Big Ten the year before. And
Yep.
a lot of the reason with Minnesota was that's when they had Rick Rickert, and he wasn't sure if he was going to enter the draft or not.
Okay.
And so I remember telling the coaches that, Dan Munson was the coach saying is that like I'm not committing until I know what he's going to do.
Sure.
Because if he comes back, that's obviously a big, it's 35 minutes of playing time that aren't available.
Yeah.
They're going to be spread out for the rest of. So it was, and he kind of waited till the last minute, and he ended up entering the draft. But by then I'd already committed to Wisconsin.
That first year with Wisconsin, did you come off the bench?
I did, yeah. It was, and it was. Sometimes I'd come off the bench really quick. It was trying to think who. So like Dave Mater would do the opening tip, and there were times Bo was bringing me in before the first whistle.
Yeah.
And there were other times, which was always like a little bit. I felt bad, like at least give Dave a chance, let him, because
Yeah.
he'd have times when he'd get a chance and he'd play really well, but there was other times, and some of them, I'm sure it was matchup dictated. If the other team was smaller, that kind of trying to get the matchups. And,
I was gonna say I thought I remember there being inconsistencies with that. Was that tough? Not kind of like first off coming off the bench, but then again like not knowing if you're coming in right away. You need to be mentally prepared right away, or I guess how did you stay locked in?
Yeah, you got. I mean, that's anybody on the bench has got to be. You got to be ready. You got to know, and it was. I didn't care. Like, I guess, and some of that's growing up. I think with my brothers and my dad. My dad, as a coach, had always, he would always say, "It doesn't matter who starts. It's all that matters is who finishes the game." And so it's in my mind, starting was never a big deal. They announce your name, but it doesn't really matter. It's who's on the court at the end when the time matters.
Right. Was there that first game, I guess, or the first practice even, was there a noticeable difference in competition to you?
No,
or not really.
No, and I actually, I've told people that the teams at Indian Hills, especially my first year, were way more talented than any Wisconsin team.
Yeah.
Obviously, they weren't as good, weren't as structured, as well coached, like all of that.
Yeah.
But like just physical talent and size and athleticism, it was like not even a question.
Did you have the confidence going into Wisconsin with like no doubt, so to speak, like I can compete with any of these guys out here?
Yeah, and it was, and also, I'm also coming in as a junior, so it's, part of that helps. I would have, if I came in as a freshman, it would have been obviously a different story, and would have been kind of really eye opening. But I came in expecting to compete, to play, to be a part of the team, and help the team win. I didn't know what that role would be exactly, but it was never I guess never really any doubt in my mind that I could compete and play with anybody.
You talked about the first couple years at Indian Hills kind of being more, it sounded like more of a fast-paced team. Was it a tough transition to dial that back then when you got to Wisconsin with Bo's, slow it down, quality possession, and then play defense?
Not. I mean, it was an adjustment. It wasn't. And I'm sure it's more on the defensive end of kind of what he demanded.
Yeah,
it was very clear that you're going to do it his way and do it the right way, or you weren't going to play.
yeah,
And so there was there was definitely a learning curve on that side of figuring out exactly how, what he expected and how to do it. Luckily, I guess the nice thing is my high school coach was very similar on the defensive end. That was definitely demanded the defense, and you same thing. If you weren't going to play defense, you weren't going to play.
yeah.
So
When you said Bobby Knight-esque, I was like, okay, well, he had a little introduction to it then, I guess.
Yeah, so it was, coming to Wisconsin was much more high school style for me, of what, even the style of coaching and the offense and the defense. And, obviously it was an adjustment, but it was more, on offense, it is what it is. You're going to run the offense. You're going to get a good shot. It was more of a bigger adjustment on the defensive end.
Coming off the bench and, kind of how you've answered some of these questions, it seems like you didn't really care about your stats. You kind of cared about embracing the role and what it meant to help the team. I think that gets lost a lot today with kids, that might be the best player in high school, but are, kind of struggling to transition into a role player at the D1 level just because they can't be that high level scorer at a D1 college. Do you have any advice for kids maybe kind of struggling with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is everybody at this, you get to Division I, you get to Wisconsin, the Big Ten, like everybody on the team was the best player in high school.
Yeah.
And you get when you get on a team, when everyone comes with that idea, it's obviously that can't, not now everyone can't be that guy.
Right.
So it's, finding out what is that role. And it's not to say that, you see a lot of these guys that come in and, put up huge numbers in high school, and then all of a sudden it's people think they suck at basketball because they're averaging 3 points a game. But it's like, no, they understand the role. It's it's been interesting to, watch guys, or even, for me too, when I, put, the numbers I had here, and then you go overseas and play, all of a sudden it's like you're back to more, kind of the high school ways where it's you're expected to do, you have a different role. So you get there and all of a sudden you're expected to be the scorer. You're expected to put up points, and you're doing it. It's really just, and I see it coaching youth teams too. It's like they're so worried about the points. They're so worried about, it's like, and they watch, and a lot of that unfortunately comes from, my son loves watching NBA, watching highlights. It's like, well, those are cool highlights, but the team lost by 30. Like,
right.
It's at some point it becomes more, what are you doing to help the team win versus what are you doing to look cool?
Yeah.
It can be a tough transition for some guys. But I think once they figure out, I like the last couple of years, like you look at like Carter Gilmore.
Yes.
In high school, he put up big numbers, and he realized that wasn't going to be his role here. And there was a lot of people that's like, oh God, he's terrible. Like, why is he even on the team? But they would love to have him this year.
I think Vito Brown kind of did the same thing when he went
Vito
to
was
Wisconsin.
similar. It took him a while to develop, but when you look at Vito now overseas, and he's been playing forever. He's been a different role, and it's not everyone can be the scorer on the team. Someone's got to do the other stuff.
So you were in the era of baggy shorts. Was there a reason for the shaggy hair to go with it, and how much grief did you get from opposing teams for that?
I don't know why I had my hair like that, honestly.
It's iconic now.
I know. I wish I could have it now. Maybe that's why I knew what was coming. I enjoyed
Right.
it while I had it,
Little
but
foreshadowing.
yeah, it's I don't know why I had the long hair. It's it started my second year at Indian Hills, and and then I came here with it, and then and then Coach Ryan was so superstitious that he, even if I wanted to shave my head, I don't think he would have let me. So it was because there was a guy in Minnesota. Oh, what's his Michael Bauer, who had long hair as well, and then shaved it for the following season, and then got hurt or something. And so right away, Coach Ryan was like, "Well, you can't cut your hair. It's bad luck. You're gonna get hurt." So, but yeah, the baggy shorts part of it too was, you see the stuff we wore, and
Yeah.
well, no wonder why we look slow and unathletic. Our shorts weighed 10 pounds and
Yeah.
went down to our ankles. So
Right. So I always do this segment with my guests here. It's called Start, Sit, and Red Shirt. So
okay.
I'm going to give you 3 guys that you played with, and you have to start one, sit one, and red shirt one.
Okay.
So it's going to be Freddie Owens, Sharif Chambliss, and Cameron Taylor.
Ooh, one from each year. Start.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh. It's hard because what the people that the Sharif that people saw his senior year, the 1 year he played here, was coming. He tore his ACL the last practice of his redshirt year.
Yeah.
So he was a much different player. I mean, he was at Penn State before, but even that whole year practicing was a.
I always tell guys it's just the prime of their college career is what we're talking.
Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna start Reef, prime Reef, before pre-injury Reef, because he was gonna be a better scorer than the other two.
Yeah.
Freddie and Cam. Let's see. I guess I'll sit Cam and redshirt Freddie. I'm just trying to think. The career had Cam. Obviously, I was with him his first couple years and kind of figuring things out, but then his last couple years became balls in his hand all the time.
Yeah.
And became a scorer. And Freddie's we played the 1 year together, and he was solid. He's what you wanted as the veteran, was going to do everything, could score, play defense. But if I have to choose, Reef was probably he was a better shooter than the other two, and just a straight scorer before he got hurt. And then Cam ended up with his career, what he did.
Your first year there was you guys won the Big Ten tournament, right? That was the 03-04 year.
Yeah, we won the. Yep, that was a Big Ten tournament because that was with Devin.
Yeah. Okay. So you end up losing by 4 to Pitt in the tournament that year, too, I believe. I guess how tough was that loss, and did it make you kind of work harder that off season?
I mean, I guess anytime you lose, it sucks, especially when it's to end the season.
Yeah.
It was in Milwaukee. It was kind of I would say, terribly seeded. For us and for Pitt, Pitt was going into it thinking they were going to get, potentially like a 2 seed, and they ended up getting a 3 seed to play us in Milwaukee, which, they kind of got the shaft there. And then for us, we'd just won the Big Ten tournament, and I think we were ranked, and we were top 15 for sure, and then we got a 6 seed.
Yeah.
So it was it was a surprise. We were great to be happy to be in Milwaukee, but it was a kind of unfortunate situation. And Pitt was they were bigger, more physical than us. And I don't know, I mean, the loss sucked. I don't know how much, I guess me personally, that I carried that into the off season. It was just, it sucks. Let's get better and come back next year.
So the next season, you guys end up making the Elite Eight before running into number 1 Tar Heels, which I think was a close game as well.
Yeah, I think we lost by 4 on that one too.
What do those tournament runs feel like? especially when you get that deep into it.
It's, looking back, like you don't embrace it or, take advantage of it or, really take it all in when you're doing it. It's, it's the next day, it's the next game you're playing. But it was, those Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight in the, out in Syracuse at the Carrier Dome, and there's 35,000 people, and it was, it's obviously a cool experience. It was great. Some of it's the luck of the draw, and we we beat Northern Iowa our first round, and then Bucknell ended up upsetting Kansas, who was the one. They might have been the 2 seed in the first round. So now instead of facing Kansas and Oklahoma City, we basically made a home game, home crowd for them. Now we're playing Bucknell.
Yeah.
So it's the little things like that it's the tournament. You got to get lucky. Everything's got to kind of fall in place for you. And even that North Carolina game the Elite Eight game that we lost, I think we were tied at halftime, and they made plays that we couldn't. And they had guys that they had Marvin Williams, who was the number 2 pick in the draft, coming off the bench for him.
Yeah.
Something that we didn't have.
Yeah. Those couple years you were at Wisconsin, I guess with that success, was there a point that you can remember where you started to think about your playing career post college?
Everyone hopes that's, I guess you kind of hope that's the plan. I knew nothing about playing overseas at the, even, into my senior year. And, I knew it was potentially an option, but didn't know if it was realistic or not. And, you didn't know if, how the season goes, if you get a chance to get on a summer league team or anything, with an NBA team. But it was always a hope, but never, didn't know what options were even out there, and how realistic they were.
Did you have to now? I assume you found an agent for that.
I did, yeah. So it was kind of similar to the recruiting process. The different agents that are kind of recruiting you and meeting with them, and really just end up going with one. I went with Buddy Baker out of Indianapolis, who was more just kind of a gut feeling and hoping it works out.
So you ultimately end up playing overseas, I think, for like 10 years, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I guess, what was that transition like from college to overseas? I mean, there's a little bit of different rules, but for the most part, pretty much the same game, right?
Yeah, there was some adjustment on the rules, and especially FIBA's really changed it since then on, the traveling, and made it more, even FIBA's become more Americanized as far as what they allow and don't allow as far as traveling. But when when I first started, I called for a lot of travels, because it's the ball's got to come down before your foot comes up, and it was an adjustment, and it was I guess, in just as far as living and travel and all that, it kind of went back to almost like the junior college days of back to bus trips, back to it became it was, you no longer have school in the way you no longer think any of that. And so I was in Spain, and it was 2-a-days all year long. It was, we started off training camp with 3 days. It was on the track in the morning at, I think, 8, and then come back at 11 for individual workouts, and then team practice would be at 7:00 at night. So that was an adjustment, as well as just the culture shock of coming from Madison to going to Spain.
Yeah. What was it like having that long of a career overseas? I mean, I guess, I assume you weren't married at that point, right?
No, I met my wife, and I met when I was in college. So and we'd been together, since. So we weren't married yet, but she was she'd come back and kind of come back and forth, during the seasons, and depending on
Sure.
if there were other wives or girlfriends, she would, some of the years she'd stay for, half the year, or she'd stay a lot longer if there were other wives or girlfriends that were there on,
Mm-hmm.
some of the other Americans. Um, so it was a great experience. Again, it's like we talked about the NCAA tournament, and looking back now, it's like I didn't appreciate it or kind of embrace it as much as I could have.
Yeah.
And it's you get over there and you're there for 10 months, and becomes becomes a job pretty quick.
Yeah. Was it a tough decision to ultimately retire? And I guess, was there anyone that you talked to that kind of helped you make it?
No, there was a couple things. My body was starting to break down a little bit. I the year, I'm trying to think, going before my ninth year, right before I went over, I tore my plantar fascia. So then I was home for a
Okay.
while rehabbing. And then ended up going, finished the year in France, and then hurt my back in France, had back surgery, and then finished that year in Germany. And so it was one of those, like, do I want to continue to
Put your body through it.
put my body through it and like do the necessary stuff to be able to keep playing? And
Yeah.
especially back stuff, it's one of those, you can feel great for a month and you sneeze wrong and it
Right.
hurts for a week, and it's like, do I want to deal with that? And then the easier part of the decision was, my wife was pregnant with our second child. So now all of a sudden she can't travel by herself back and forth with two kids. So
Yeah.
now it's, if she wants to go back and forth, it's a grandparent, a friend, someone else has to be involved, because once I'm over there, I can't just,
Yeah.
say I'm going to jump on a plane and come back with you or do that. So I would say that made it easier, knowing that, um, with the second kid, and it's like my
Yeah.
body's breaking down and I'm just, you know, I'd had enough.
Yeah. When when you decided to move back, was the obvious decision back to Madison, or I guess how did that work?
Yeah. So
Since
I
you
was, the season generally was over there. I was there, mid August to middle May, beginning of June. So then you know, every summer when I was, not over there, I was in Madison. My
okay.
wife was born
Okay.
and raised in Middleton. So it was,
Okay.
I guess when I was really playing, it was nice to come here, be able to use the facilities, play pickup with the guys, kind of do all that. And there was always kind of a group of guys that were playing overseas that would all come back here in the summers. With like Mike Wilkinson and Kirk was around, and uh, who else? I mean, there's a lot of guys that were kind of in the same boat. So it was to have everybody here and you know be able to work out together, play together, and just be it. Obviously, the best time of the year in Madison is the summer, not right now.
Yeah.
So
Oh, for sure.
it's cold. I've had enough of it right now. But it's so that was So then we bought a house in Middleton when I was still playing. So
Okay.
we've been here since.
Um, I read in an article that but this was like from 3 years ago, I think. You had become a referee up around there. Are you still doing that, or don't have enough time now that you are coaching two kids sports, soon to
I
possibly
yeah, I
be three
still
kids sports?
Yeah, no, I do some. I've definitely cut back. I haven't done a ton this year.
Okay.
But I still do it and I enjoy it. It's originally did it as it was and it still is. It's a way to kind of stay involved in the game, give back to the game that gave me a lot. Obviously, there's a huge shortage for officials, and I think the more officials that have played the game, the better.
Yeah.
It's one thing to know the rules; it's another thing to kind of know the game, and having that background is definitely, I feel like, helps when you're officiating. Kind of understand what the flow of the game, and you know have an idea of, all right, what's potentially going to happen next on the play
Yeah.
versus like, oh, they touched him, so I got to call foul, when it's
Yeah.
really giving the advantage to the defense when they, you call it and the kid's going to have a wide open layup. So
Yeah.
I think I enjoy it. I don't know how much, I've scaled back and because of the coaching and the kids and all that. So I don't know. Well, I'll probably keep doing it some, but not as much.
Yeah. To that point, I think it also leads to confident, consistent calls, which is a big struggle for high school referees, I feel like.
Yeah, it is. Oh, and that's the biggest. It's the consistency, and um, it's I don't it's, even now and with you stuff, it's like I don't care what you call, but like just call it consistently.
Yeah.
I don't care how bad the call is, but make the bad call on the other end too.
Right, right. Yes. But so you're a financial advisor now as well.
Yep.
Do you only take a specific type of clientele? Because I know, like, technically Garrett Groshek, when I interviewed him, will take any type of clients, but he kind of specializes in post college players. It seemed like.
Okay. Yeah. No, I would say the majority. I can work with anybody. I would say the majority of them are, um, a lot of my clients are kind of the married couples, professionals,
Okay.
that, and some of it's just because that's my demographic and that's what I know. Small business owners are a lot of, it's kind of where the majority of my clientele comes from.
Sure.
Similar, you've got a lot of juggling a lot on your plate and you're trying to figure out lots of different things between kids and, education and retirement. And, it's really putting that all together. And, I guess the one piece of that too, especially with kids and, with being the Dadger podcast is, one thing I stress and talk with everybody is, if you have kids or if you have some spouse or whatever, it's like, the importance of life insurance. It, I've seen too many times where it's, there's kids in the picture and there's, someone passes away tragically and it's not there. And it's, not only did they lose a parent, but now they're losing their house. They're losing it's
Yeah.
something that no one wants to talk about. No one wants to think about, but it's an easy way to protect your loved ones.
I'm going to try to bridge basketball and financial advisory. It's probably going to fail, but I'm going to try it anyway.
Okay.
So in basketball, you constantly have in-game adjustments to the opponent, right? How did that adaptability play in a role in building financial strategies?
Yeah, I mean, it's your. I mean, things are changing. Everything, there's always, lives are changing, the situations are changing, jobs are changing, the markets are always changing. It's, trying to take that and figure out what adjustments need to be made. I guess and ultimately it comes down, it's like anything with sports. It's the kind of having a game plan and having your principles, but then also having the ability to make changes when needed or where they're needed. And then, doing it, especially the analytics, in the sports these days, but it's like doing it efficiently. Everyone only has so much money or time to work with. So how do we efficiently make changes to ultimately give someone the ability to retire?
You only had a couple years when you came to Wisconsin, but you were able to build a trust and kind of form a bond with those guys in the locker room. How do you build trust with clients the same way you built it with those teammates?
I mean, I think it's just being authentic, I'm not gonna, just like I played, I was gonna, I was gonna compete. I was going to knew that you could count on me, as a teammate. It's like one of those that when we went out, game started, you knew I was gonna give everything I had. I was gonna I was going to compete. I was going to do what was necessary to help the team win. It wasn't about me. It wasn't going to, and I would say it's similar, with building trust with clients. It's, they're people can tell someone who's phony or fake or,
Yeah.
blowing smoke up. It's just being authentic with them, it's asking questions and actually listening, is a big piece of that, is figuring out where they're at, what their why is, why do they want to work with me? Why do, and then kind of letting them, giving them the education and the information they need to make the best decision for themselves. Because at the end of the day, it's their money. It's not mine. It's
Right.
their plan. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
help them put the best plan in place or make the best decisions possible. But I'm not, if they don't want to do it, I can't tell them they have to.
Since I'm trying to kind of bridge it here, do you ever find yourself using sports analogies when explaining financial concepts to clients, or not? Never comes up.
No, I mean, so it depends on the client. It depends on if I know their background, if I know but I would say not a time other than like, it's just like a basket. You go into a game with a game plan. You have an idea of what you're trying to do. You have your fundamentals. You have your the things you can always count on. They're going to be there. But I don't get a ton into the basketball analogies with on the day to day stuff. But it is. I mean, what it does, it definitely correlates.
serves a time and a place, right?
It does. And at the end of the day, it's having a game plan and trying to know exactly what you're trying to accomplish, and working your way to how do we do that by small steps and the fundamentals.
If we can now transition kind of into the fatherhood piece of it, you have 4 kids, correct?
I do, yeah.
And I'm sorry, what were the ages? I think you told me.
So my son is the oldest. He's 12, and then I have 3, and the 3 youngest are daughters. So they're 10, 8, and 5.
Okay, that's a full house.
Yeah, it's busy. No, it is, but it's it was It was funny. I was actually just talking with. I was at last night at the Andy North and Friends trivia, and was talking with another former player, his wife, and they have 3 and thinking about 4. And she's like, I just don't know how you do it. And it's like, oh, it's like anything, you just do it. You adapt. Like
Yeah. So
figure out a way.
So from one is like a half court defense, 4 is like full press. What was that transition like?
Yeah, to me the hardest was going from 0 to 1, because it was
Okay.
all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's what did we just get ourselves into? Like all of a sudden it's the middle of the night and home from the hospital and the baby's crying. It's like, oh Jesus, what did we do? Like we're responsible for this life for the rest of our forever.
There for sure is a moment of anxiety where it's like you have the nurses in the hospital, and then you get home and you're like, okay, this is real. This is forever.
Yeah, it hit you. It hit us. It's like, oh my God, what do we do here? But no, so that was, one to me was the hardest, and then from there it's adjusting, and then it's just becomes time management. It's splitting your time, it's really juggling and, teamwork, and finding, a lot of it's sharing rides with neighbors or grandparents, or, it's obviously it takes, like I say, it takes a village, but it does. I mean, it's I would say, especially because I'm coaching their teams, and their practices are always back to back.
Yeah.
I can, my daughter's practice is first, so I can take her, and then one of the guys that helps me coach takes her home, and one of the guys that helps me coach my son's team brings him to practice, and you figure out a way.
So any parent I've talked to that has multiple kids say every kid basically has a different personality, it seems like. Is that do you guys feel that with your kids as well?
Yeah, they do. It's interesting because I would say our oldest and then our third, the first and third are very similar personalities, and the second and fourth are very similar. So it's,
Okay.
but they obviously all have different personalities, but I would say those two are, the two pairs are very similar in the personalities. And and it's funny because the oldest and then their third probably have more of my personality and the other two have my wife's personality. And it's just kind of weird how the genetics and all that works.
Yeah.
How it's fascinating. I would say they have the oldest and the third have my personality, but look more like my wife. And the other two have her personality look more like me. So it's, I don't know. It's fascinating.
I was gonna say that's got to be cool though.
Yeah.
Is there something that not only basketball but just competition in general that you are most intentional about kind of passing on to your kids a lesson?
I mean, I would say just trying, like, try hard, compete, do your best. I know it's kind of cliche, but it's, I talk with my son quite a bit about it. It's like, I don't care if you make the shots. I don't care if you, play try hard. Don't let the missed shot now all of a sudden affect you where now your guy scores on you because you're pouting because you missed a shot. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just compete, try hard, and do, be a good teammate. Try to focus on what can we do to help the team win versus what makes me look better.
Yeah. I guess, being a coach, you probably have it reeled in a little bit, but was it tough initially to kind of balance that competitiveness that you have, from playing sports with patience as a parent?
Yeah, and it's still a battle with, coaching, and it's, I sometimes I think I expect too much, and I have to step back and be like, well, they're 10 and 12, like,
Yeah.
things that you just assume they know. There's every day, every practice, every game, it's like you say something assuming like they know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, well, we've never covered that. We never, they don't know what I'm talking about, and they're obviously not going to see the game the same way I do. And it's trying to remind myself constantly. It's like they're doing the best they can do. It's even though it drives me insane sometimes, I've got to try to let it go.
Yeah. So what does success look like for you now, watching your kids and kind of coaching your kids look like for you compared to when you were playing?
I mean, I for now it's just like, are you, for my individual kids or just for the teams, it's like, are we getting better? Are we,
Yeah.
From the beginning of the year to the end of the year, did we get better? And then, do they want to keep playing? Because to me, as a youth coach, if they got better and they want to play again next year, then I succeeded.
Yeah.
It's they're developing, they're having fun, and it's nobody's, there's no NBA teams scouting a 12-year-old, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Are we building it so that 5 years now they still want to play basketball? And are we kind of building the foundation, the fundamentals, so that when they get there, they can have success?
Since I was watching it in preparation for this, somebody made a highlight reel of you at Wisconsin,
Okay.
on YouTube. So I'm curious if your kids have ever, like, kind of stepped up or challenged you a little bit, and you just show them the highlight reel, like, yeah, this used to be me back in the day.
No, they're still too young for that. And
Sure.
they know better. Some of the kids will try to challenge me in shooting contests or something,
Sure.
practice, or I still have to, every year I told them I'll prove that I can still dunk. I'll do it once a year
Right.
for as long as I can. So we'll see how long that lasts. But no, my son he must have watched the Wisconsin one, and he was like, Dad, that's not even highlights. Like, you just were shooting layups and like jump hooks. It's like, no, that was a highlight back in Wisconsin. Those days.
Right.
But I was like, oh, you must have found a bad one. But no, he did. It wasn't even that long ago he brought that up. And I was like, oh, what are you watching? And he could not believe it. They called that a highlight video.
Well, once he understands the footwork, he'll appreciate it a lot more. But
he'll get there someday.
When you guys, I guess I assume you've taken him back to a game at the Kohl Center, probably, correct?
Yeah, we try. We try to go at least once a year, and they won't. We've tried that. We went to one right before Christmas. We had family in town for Christmas. My brother and nephews were up here, so we all went down to the game, and I'll take my son. Occasionally I'll take my son down to watch practice, or he knows, Sharif and Joe and Greg, all those guys I played with.
Yeah.
They're still around. They have kids, so we'll go down and see those guys and hang out. So it's a cool experience to be able to do, to take him and kind of see it through his eyes of the locker room and how cool everything is.
Yeah, I was gonna say once he was able to actually fully appreciate it, was that just like a bittersweet moment for you?
Yeah, and he was. I guess it's been one of those two. Even being around, even when I was still playing and he was little, I would be down there, and as a baby, I'd bring him down there, and we'd be at the in the training room or in the gym But he has, I think I hope and I think he thinks it's cool. It is. He's getting opportunities that most kids don't.
Right.
And it's not something that will probably always be an option. I don't know. Hopefully Gardo and those guys are here forever, but it's college sports. You never know. And
right.
If it's a different staff for different things, I don't know what kind of access I would have.
Yeah. So this interview's been awesome. I always ask two final questions. The first one being, if when your kids come of age someday and somehow randomly come across this somewhat similar to your highlight reel, what do you hope that they take away from this interview?
Just I would say, embrace the journey, and at the end of the day, what are you doing to make your team better? What are you doing to make yourself better? How are we, are you competing? Did you compete? Did you, give everything you had as a teammate, as a dad, as a, in business, in life, to your, as a spouse? It's, ultimately that's what you're going to be remembered by. It's not going to be what you did. It's been 20 years since I played here. So it's,
yeah,
it's that, that all goes away. It's, it was actually, I was at an event with Coach Ryan when I was still playing overseas, and we were back in the summer, and I don't even know what we went. He and I got invited to, it was a golf outing and then a talk after. And I just remember him saying, someone asked the questions like, what's success for you with your former players and stuff. And his big thing was, he's like, I don't care what they did in college. I don't care if they're playing overseas. Like, if I went to their neighbors and I asked them, are they a good neighbor? What's the answer going to be? He's like, if they're all good neighbors, then I was successful. And so it's, it's one of those, I just remember hearing, it's like, oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah,
but it's true. If you go to someone and ask if they're a good neighbor, obviously that's going to tell you, what kind of person they are.
Yeah, I like that. And then finally, I'll tie it back to Wisconsin here. How do you think the Badgers have looked so far, and end of the season predictions?
It's kind of been a roller coaster, and they've got the pieces, they've got the talent. It's in this day and age, it's so hard with the portal and new teams and new, if you don't have obviously Wisconsin's had stability coaching, and they've had kind of the cultures in place, but it's still a learning curve of getting everybody to accept those standards. And this team, especially on the defensive end, is they can score and they can do that.
Yeah.
Can you stop someone? And then the other part of that is if you can't stop someone and then you go cold and can't hit a shot, I feel like that's where they've gotten in trouble this year. And
yeah,
even the other night, I got in the car after practice and heard the half. I saw, it's all of a sudden I saw Matt LePay last night. I was told him I got in the car and I heard the score and I just turned it off. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, what?
I was doing some editing on a different episode here, and it got to like 15, and I was like, all right, my wife had the remote, and I was like, all right, we need to switch to a different game for a little bit because this is frustrating.
Yeah, and I didn't. I mean, I guess luckily I didn't even have to watch it that first half, but it was. But it goes back to that second half shows you the team they can be,
Right.
and it's just a matter of how do you stack those good halves, and then as you go, it's you get to the tournament, you can't have a half like that like they had the other night, or
Right.
your season's over because you're going to be placing teams are going to be better.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to put up 50 on them in the second half.
Right. Any end of the season prediction for how we think they're going to end up?
No, I mean, they're going to be dangerous. I mean, I was going to say,
are they going to get a first round tournament win? Hopefully.
Yeah, I would. I mean, that obviously you hope, but but I also think they're a dangerous team that could make a run. You've got you get to the tournament. The key to the tournament's those experienced guards, and they've got between Boyd and Blackwell and Rhodey, like you've got old guards.
Yeah.
And it's those are what are going to ultimately determine how far they go, and those guys can all go. So it's they could be a very dangerous team in the tournament. It's just a matter of can they get enough stops, and can they make some shots when they need to.
Consistency.
Yeah, no, and that's the plan. And I'm sure the coaches would say the same thing. It's like knowing what you're getting night in and night out, being consistent on both ends of the court.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for this episode
right.
of the Dadger. Huge thanks to Zach Morley for sharing his journey from Wisconsin basketball to fatherhood and showing how the game can teach us long after the final buzzer. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to like, subscribe, let us know who you'd like to hear from next. As always, on Wisconsin. Thank you, Zach.
All right, thank you.